General quarters, all hands man your battle stations.
Broadcasting live on WNN 1470 AM, 95.3 FM, iHeartRadio, and the World Wide Web. This is Make America Think Again with your Google Blacklisted host, Tom Trento.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger. No, Will Robinson. Danger.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Trento Hour. This is Susie Gold, and today is Friday, November 13th. And we have a great show planned for you today on this wonderful Friday morning. And I'll kick it over to Tom. What do we have going on today, Tom?
I just realized that little intro says the Trento Show. It is my show.
It is your show.
But you're a co-host, so we have to redo that in
the Susie Gold
with
show.
the Susie Gold Show. And Tom Trento occasionally gets to speak on the Susie Gold Show. What was the date?
The 13th. It's Friday the 13th.
Triskaidekaphobia.
Yeah.
Oh my God. It's Triskaidekaphobia Day.
I never heard of that.
You never heard of it?
Tell me, what is that?
Well, let's look at your Greek.
Okay.
Have you studied Greek?
I didn't study Greek.
What did you study in high school?
What language or Latin? You and I had Latin.
Yeah, I had Latin
Yeah.
too. Conjugate mode.
Yeah. We learned about a Greek a lot.
Well, I took Greek later on in school, but Triskaidekaphobia. Triska, what do you think that is?
Triska.
Try.
3.
3. Decade.
10.
3 and 10.
It's 13.
Phobia. Triskaidekaphobia.
Fear of the 13th.
Fear of the 13th. Are you afraid of the 13th?
I'm not afraid. No.
If you get in an elevator or in an airplane, would you sit in row 13 or go
Yeah,
13?
yeah. No, I'm not superstitious.
What was your race
like
car
that.
number, Tom?
The race car was number 13 and it was green. You're never supposed to have a green car and it's never supposed to be
Well, you know what they
13.
do, like on an elevator. You won't see 13, but you see 14.
Whoa.
They're trying to fake you out. They're lying
There
to
was a
us.
Twilight Zone episode once where they didn't have a 13th floor, and they went up to 12. It says, "Well, where's it? Oh, it skips because there's no buildings have a 13th floor." And then the one time that they got off on a 13th floor, and it's like the spooky floor.
Zombies. Well, we have a dear friend of ours with us in the studio, and I'm going to ask him if he's afraid of Triskaidekaphobia, if he has any way in his life Triskaidekaphobia. Ken Abramowitz, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning to everybody. The answer is no. And by the way, for your intellectual curiosity, in Israel, the buildings do have a 13th floor.
All right, there we go. No fear of anything. And normally we do today Jumpin' Juma Freaky Friday. We haven't done that in a while. We the United West people, have been accused of being Islamophobes.
No.
Right? If you look at the word phobia, it's a unfounded fear. It's not a fear that has a legitimate basis. If you talk to any Jews or Christians that live in Islamically controlled countries, their phobia is founded. There is a legitimate fear of an Islamic government, Islamic state, all of that. So Islamophobia is a nonsensical term.
Right.
And it really makes no sense because there are legitimate reasons to fear the system of Islam. It's a political system, and we have expertise on all of that, as does Ken.
Because they truly are out to get you.
Out to get a lot of, they have to have a world mandate. And that mandate of the Islamic world has made its way into the United States of America.
Convert, submit, or die.
Convert, submit, or die. That's a nice motto for you. Ours is Make America Think Again. They got convert, submit, or die. A little more.
Ours is educate. We have a little fun as we're learning.
They have a little more testosterone on their side, I think, than we do. But they have joined. The Islamic jihadists, the cultural jihadists, the Muslim Brotherhood in particular, has joined, ladies and gentlemen. 9:08 in the morning. Tom Trento, your host, with actually the co-host of the Susie Gold Show here.
I'm very much the
Friday
co-host.
the 13th. And it is 9:08. As I said, we are on a whole bunch of stations and maybe more in the future. We're working on that. 1470 AM.
1470, 96.9 FM and 95.3 FM. And we're on iHeartRadio. If you go on theunitedwest.org, you can see the videos. You can watch live right now. If you go on the unitedwest.org website, you can watch us live. Or you can go on YouTube and you can see today's show. You could see past shows.
And future shows.
And what?
And future shows.
Future. Yeah. If you have that ability.
Hit the future button.
In the future, you could see future shows.
Yeah, right. So we got a great show today. Ken is here. Ken manages the organization Save the West. Ken has been with us many times in Israel. Ken has been back and forth to Israel a zillion times.
Where's the Valley girl at?
The Valley. Oh.
Did she not come today,
Mrs. Ken. I think she'll be here later. She coming later?
She bailed on us.
Ken married a phenomenal Israeli woman.
Yeah.
And we have a lot of fun with her on our trips in Israel. If you're listening, Nira, hello from the show here. Ken is with us. He's going to provide some insight into some of the chaotic craziness of the day. In a little while, we got Don Brown coming on. Don Brown's a very prestigious attorney and prolific. I'm alliterating. Prestigious and prolific. Powerful, wonderful person. He'll be on, and he has a perspective on the fraud that's taking place nationwide. He's going to give us his perspective as a trial attorney.
Speaking of the fraud, you see the thing that happened last night on Hannity where they started remember I've been ragging on the Dominion voting machines?
Mm-hmm.
They finally started talking about this damn story.
Oh, really? On Hannity?
Yep.
Dominion is a big issue. We'll touch on that. I am not using my typical Tom Trento hour cup that's over here. I have a styrofoam cup.
What's in that cup? Is that Coke?
It's dark. It's red. Wonderful aroma. And it's a nice Chianti. I need some beans to go along with it. Fava beans. We are at an undisclosed location later on today. Actually, starting today, and people will be going to the location where we're going to be later on. We're having a thank you party. What's that all about?
Yeah, no, it's great. We're going to have, first of all, there's so many organizations that we're involved with. The United West is what I call the inner spokes of the wheel. And then there's many organizations that surround us. We work collaboratively. We work in conjunction with these other organizations. And, together, we did some really great things for Florida to ensure that President Trump did win in Florida. We had some great races that we were a significant part of. And what we did is we've spent the past 2 years on our mission to make America think again. And specifically, we've worked on the spiritual battle for America. So we do need to celebrate our successes here, and therefore we're having a party with our good friends from all of these other organizations are coming, and we're going to celebrate.
Beautiful. That's going to be a lot of fun. Maybe we'll shoot a little video and bring it to our Monday show. On the 11th, 2 days ago, I wore a shirt. BD. Been there, done that. Oh yeah, been there, done that.
BT.
And on the back, it had a map of Vietnam and a couple of different locations. That shirt was, and I wanted to mention it on Veterans Day, and I forgot to. That shirt was, I got that in 1996 because myself, Steve Reed, and a couple of others, we were on a film team going back to Vietnam, taping the story of two of America's legendary Navy SEALs, Dick Marcinko, Richard Marcinko, and James Watson. And it was an amazing experience. We'll tell these stories a little later. We have that planned for 2021. My cousin was one of the legendary early SEALs. We're going to tell his story. These are important issues. But Jim Watson wrote a book, We Won Our War. And it was a whole story of how the SEALs operated as a very elite military unit within the larger military complex of the U.S. government. But history records that we lost Vietnam. It went communist. But the SEALs says, we won our war. Where we were fighting, we never lost, we won. That's similar to us in Florida. We won our war down here. And the implications of that, Ken, I'm going to ask you this question. The implications of Florida now becoming a legitimate stronghold of conservatism. Some call it Trumpism. Seems to me to give us an obligation to figure this out and then help lead other states in constructing its conservative movement to be as victorious as we have been here. What do you think, Ken?
That's true. As you know, with our 50 states, each one's, as they say, is a little laboratory. And Florida has a great chance to be a big laboratory. The measure that I would keep watching is the percentage of Republicans versus Democrats. And it should be, in a perfect world, should be 90% Republicans, 10% Democrats.
Good.
So to the extent that it isn't, it shows that there's a cultural corruption, particularly in the school system. And the governor should be reviewing all the books of all the kids, public and private schools, to eliminate the reds and greens, false narratives, the false narratives of the reds, the communist socialists, the false narrative of the Islamists. And so that's my barometer for every state. What percent Democrats? It should be 10%, basically the criminal organizations. But for normal Americans, it should be 90% Republican at this point. And that's the key barometer to watch. And we still have a lot of work to do.
All right, for those of you trying to figure out what Ken is saying, 90% Republican, Democrat. In a perfect world, you said that, where people think logically, where there's the installation of an operative God in culture, in the founding documents, not to the extent where the church controls the state. We ran away from that in Britain. We don't want that. The wall of separation doesn't keep the church out of the state's business. It keeps the state out of the church's business. The church has a higher moral obligation to be the moral guide to the culture, to the principles and policies. And if everyone were following that, it could be because there's going to be 10, 15, 20% crazies all the time, if we can keep it to 20. But sadly, Ken, we had 30 years of the reverse. We had the academy at every level teaching anti-Americanism, anti-Israel, anti-patriotism. And here's where we are. You know, it looks like this anti-American movement may prevail in about a month from today. That's when the Electoral College has to have their certification and election of whoever the president's going to be. All right. Now,
I do want to make a little. Yeah, we were promising Wendy Satori link today. And actually, Mort did a picture of her.
Well, let me give the background to it.
Okay.
Wendy Sartori Link is the new hero of the United States, the hero of Palm Beach. What did she do?
So what she did is she is the elector. She's the supervisor of elections. And she's a hero because look at what happened in Florida. You know, we had our elections. We knew who the winners were that night on the 3rd.
Yeah.
And of course, Wendy Satori Link, as the supervisor of elections, gets a lot of credit for that because everything ran methodically and honestly. And we knew what the vote was by the end of the night.
11 million votes, the third largest state in the union. And it was really done about 8:30, but they were playing games. They called it around 10 o'clock. She's done an amazing job.
Yeah.
So we
invited her. And that's with
her.
mail-in ballots, right? Because we do absentee ballots here in Florida. It was with early voting. So everything was complete and done well and with precision. And so thank you, Wendy Link, for being so efficient at what you do.
And Mark, our director, invited her on the show. And she said, absolutely. She was going to be here today. Perfect day.
Yeah.
The day of our celebration, our thank you, Triskaidekaphobia Day. And she was excited, and it was going to be very interesting interviewing her. And what happened, Mark?
She got COVID.
She got the Wuhan.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, she doesn't know. She said, I have no idea. She did all the steps and everything possible.
Susie, did you talk to her? Did you meet her or anything like that? Or not?
I didn't. Oh, thanks, Mark. I don't have the Wuhan.
She tested negative.
And if I did, I wouldn't be here.
But
today.
anyway, Mort on his own came on and did this.
Who's
drawing.
Mort?
Mort Cuff is our graphic artist for the United West, and he did it on his own. He came up and did this rendition. Whenever we sent it to her, she thanked us stuff. So
All right, show everybody. Here's the picture of Wendy Sartori Link, drawn by the United West personal graphic artist. And more, all the years of all the work you've done, now you're our personal art. Where is he? Oh, he's over there somewhere.
Yeah,
he's over here. Okay. So a beautiful rendition. He also did one of John Voight that I sent to John Voight.
And Reverend Franklin Graham.
And Franklin Graham sent it to him. Mort's a pretty
really talented guy.
All right, before we get to our next guest, triskaidekaphobia, the 13th.
Triskaidekaphobia.
There's a guy out there who, philosopher, atheist, Jewish philosopher, had tremendous impact in the United States, particularly in two individuals. Hillary Clinton wrote her thesis on this guy and sat under him, actually. And Barack Obama was a student of his. He had been gone by then. This individual that I'm referring to wrote a number of books. One in particular, when you write a book, you do all this work, your life's work, all of this stuff.
You put thought into it.
You put a lot of thought into it, and you want to do a dedication. If you write a book, I'm sure after you get it done, you're going to say, I got to dedicate
It's like
this.
birthing a baby.
I got to dedicate this.
Someone special.
Let me finish. I'm building it up. If you write a book, you take a year to do it, and you go through everything, you write it. You're going to say, I'm dedicating this to Tom Trento. I know you're going to do that.
I was thinking of that.
you're
I
gonna
don't
do
know
that.
what book it's going to be,
But
but
it's
when I
going to
write
your
my
time.
book, it definitely will
a
be.
comic book, right? Well, this particular gentleman, he dedicated his book to, before I tell you who he dedicated to, he also said that if he could, he would go into hell and organize hell because he's that good of an organizer. So he dedicated his book, none other than to Lucifer, the devil. He dedicated his book to the devil in his first edition. And then in later editions, the publisher said, this is probably not a good idea. They pulled the dedication to Lucifer out. I went back and found on eBay or someplace an early edition. In fact, I have it right over here. An early edition with, I dedicate this to the greatest organizer ever, Lucifer. Well, the book is called Rules for Radicals. It has 13 key rules. I'm going to bring on our next guest, but I'm going to lead the intro to the next guest with the 13th rule for our next guest, the 13th rule of Saul Alinsky, who dedicated his book to Lucifer. Here's the 13th rules for radicals. Pick the target, Donald Trump. Freeze it. Personalize it. Polarize it. Cut off the support network and isolate the target from sympathy. Go after people and not institutions. People hurt faster than institutions. Don Brown, if Saul Alinsky were sitting next to you right now, what would you say to him?
I would say, Saul, I've got a little orange juice mixed with cyanide. What the hell are you thinking? I'm just kidding. What we're seeing.
No, he's not.
Yeah. What we are seeing with with Democrat operatives has been rules for radicals laid out, by the letter. All 13 rules, or however many there are. But it's all about chaos. It is about isolating and attacking individuals and trying to beat them back in submission. And we're seeing it on a macro level and a micro level. I mean, even on a micro level, what you're seeing is, people who post on social media get fact checked and banned, and people who, and then again, at larger levels, you have people like General Flynn being prosecuted for political reasons. And so it's an attack on individuals with different thought. So we're living it right now, and we've lived it for the last 4 years more so than any other time in our history. And we can see their playbook, and we see the way he's playing it back. But it's like one of my favorite movies of all time is Patton. You know, the 1970 great war movie with George C. Scott, who won an Academy Award. And there's a scene in there when he first engages Rommel, and he lays on the side of the bed, and he sits up after Patton's tanks have scored a victory, and he says, Rommel, you son of a bitch, I read your book. So Patton had the playbook. We've got the playbook. So the good news is, I guess I would maybe thank Mr. Alinsky that he gave us his playbook so we know what to expect. So, you know, you can kind of look at it both ways.
Well, you know, you raise a very interesting issue. Patton read Rommel's book. Patton knew the importance of knowing the enemy, naming your enemy, understanding. Our good friends, Steve Coughlin and Rich Higgins, you know them well. They run an organization called Unconstrained Analytics. Now, if you're ever looking for a name of an organization, that's probably the worst name in the world, like Unconstrained Analytics. What the heck?
Not if you're Beanhead, you know, if you're Beanhead, you know, it's a great name. Anyway, go ahead.
Yeah. So you're going to get a t-shirt, Unconstrained Analytics. All right. I want one of those. I'll, you know, unconstrained, my hat, Unconstrained Analytics.
There's not enough room on the hat.
But they're both military guys, you know, combat guys and intelligence guys. Steve Coughlin worked on the Joint Chiefs staff. Rich Higgins, we had him on the other day. Unconstrained means they don't bring any bias into their analytics, into their analyzing. They're going to have a sober analysis of the situation and let the cards fall where they may. If we're being overrun by the enemy on Hill 321, that's the situation.
Right.
And in doing so, you're how many years were you in the you're still in, aren't you? Aren't you like in the reserves or?
No, I went out of the reserves a few years ago, but I was at 16 altogether between active and reserves.
All right. Well, you know that you got to have a sober look at the enemy. What is your 2-sentence critique of the Obama administration, their view of the enemy, Marxist and jihadist enemy? And it looks like the Obama administration is coming back to life in the Harris-Biden administration by the selection of these individuals. What do you predict to be the sober analysis of understanding the enemy from the Harris-Biden administration?
Well, we're praying to God that won't happen. And, you know, it'll happen when it happens. But if by some nightmare it does happen, because this election process is not over, but by some nightmare it does happen, then it's very clear from the beginning that Joe Biden's been nothing but a Trojan horse, that he's had, you know, operatives, you know, dangling the strings, you know, like the puppeteer with the marionette from the beginning. You know, when you look at his website, you see they've embraced the Green New Deal. And so they will be bringing back Obama operatives from the Obama White House who know how to run the White House in the most Marxist manner possible, but drifting even farther to the left, because now you have AOC's Green New Deal basically slapped down on the Biden website. You know, you have Biden speaking even more boldly than Obama did on radical ideas, such as waging an outright war and ending the oil industry. Back during the Obama days, he was going to just kill the coal industry, but now it's gone even farther than that. So I'm expecting the same machinery of government with a much more radical philosophical bent. If, you know, God help it doesn't happen, but if it does happen, that fool is sworn in January. So we'll have to see.
And we want to get to you on your analysis of hopefully why that won't happen. But as you well know, Don, you've been with us to Israel.
Right.
I have my
co-host. That was great.
I have my co-host here, Susie Gold, a Torah observant Jew, and Ken Abramowitz is here, an observant Jew. I'm going to ask both of them to weigh in. And look, all our friends out there, simply because we're considering various unconstrained, we're analyzing in an unconstrained way that if the Harris-Biden administration gets in, my question to Ken and Susie Gold, you can go first. You're the woman. And what are the implications for a Harris-Biden and Don? I'm not making a mistake when I say Harris-Biden administration. That's
no, you got it exactly
Yeah.
right.
as a
You got it
Biden
exactly
job.
right. I don't think there's many debate
right.
on that.
What are the implications for Israel with a Harris-Biden administration?
And also, I would like to add the question too. Less than a year or more than a year before Harris actually takes the presidency too. Add that question in.
Yeah. It's not so far-fetched. I mean, look at what Trump has accomplished with the Middle East, where there is our normalized relationships with Israel, with various countries, and we have the move of the U.S. Embassy. And the question is, how will that all be impacted under a Harris administration? You
Well,
know,
how? I'm asking you. How?
So my answer is, first of all, it's going to be reversed. They've already said it. They've already said that they're going to normalize relationships with the PA, and they're going to bring them back into Washington. They're going to open up to a relationship with Iran, which we have removed ourselves from that. They don't want peace in the Middle East because they're coming from another side. They're coming from the dark side. So we know that there's going to be strong implications for Israel. We know that it's going to be negative. Under Trump, it was all positive, the peace and there was a flourishing of positive relationships with Israel and the neighboring countries. So we know that that's going to be reversed. They've already said that they're going to reverse it. So their side is that they're all for really basically pushing the Jews into the Mediterranean because that's what the Muslims want to do.
From the river to the
from
sea.
the river to this isn't even about land. This is just to destroy a people and destroy a
It's
country.
Islamic doctrine.
Yeah, and this is where they come. I mean, what did Biden say during the debates when he said "Inshallah"? I mean, what was that all about?
God.
So we know what their leanings are. We know what their inclinations are. We know who they're so-called in bed with, and it's certainly not going to be for the side of peace and for connection with Israel. It's going to be what did Obama say, that there wouldn't be daylight between Israel and the United States, which was anything but daylight.
Yeah,
it was
right,
darkness.
darkness.
So that it's already been stated what they're going to do.
All right, alhamdulillah. Let me talk to Ken here. Ken,
Alhamdulillah.
alhamdulillah, yeah.
And a better shoe out of me.
Ken, the Obama administration not leaned toward, but fully embraced the brotherhood, the Muslim Brotherhood. The Obama-Netanyahu coalition has been building a movement with anti-brotherhood Sunni Arabs.
The Trump
whoever
Netanyahu coalition.
Yeah, the Trump and Netanyahu coalition. What do you see happening with a Harris-Biden administration in relation to Israel?
Well, let me just step back for 1 minute, and then I'll answer the question about Israel. America is fighting two enemies, the Reds and the Greens. The communists, the Reds, the traditional color for communism is red. In Islamism, the traditional color for Islam is green. So America's in a war with the red-green alliance or the red-green axis. And Biden and Harris basically represent the Reds and the Greens. So basically what's going on, if they succeed, which is not obvious, if they succeed, the Reds and the Greens will take over America and will become a communist Islamist country. So therefore, in the Middle East, they'll support the communists, China in particular, and they'll support the Islamists, the Muslim Brotherhood, and its friends, namely Turkey, Qatar, and Iran. Now, the irony, the supreme irony, is the Sunni Arabs know this. And the little love affair, so to speak, between the Sunni Muslims and the Israeli Jews is going to become a wedding, so to speak. And I look for another 10 or so Muslim Sunni countries to basically marry Israel and form a defense pact. You would not see it in the newspaper as a defense pact, but in effect, Israel will be protecting the Sunni Arab
This is
countries.
amazing.
Can you imagine in
This is
1948, just pretend
Yeah.
that during the Independence War, if I were living then, I say, I predict in 72 years, Israel will not be fighting the Sunni Muslim countries. They'll be married to the Sunni Muslim countries. There'll be a great love affair, so to speak, underneath the surface. And together, they're going to take on the Muslim Brotherhood, the Greens, and the Reds, and save Western civilization. You would laugh hysterically. You'd say, this guy, too much hashish or something got to his head. And so that's the irony of the situation.
Unbelievable. And, Ken knows of what he speaks, as we do on this. It's a bizarre situation. And we got Erdogan running around wanting to be the next caliph of the Islamic world. Well, Don, at least you disbelieve that I have rules for radicals. I have the 1971 edition. It cost me $70.
I'm glad to know where my contributions to United West are headed.
Let's go here. The research library. I'm going to read the dedication and then ask you what is going on right now around the United States to keep the Harris-Biden administration. There it is on the screen. I'll read it on the screen. It says, Saul Alinsky, least we forget at least an over-the-shoulder acknowledgement to the very first radical from all our legends, mythology, and history. I mean, this guy believes in, even though he's an atheist, he believes in the power of Lucifer. The first radical known to man who rebelled against the establishment and did it so. The establishment is God, by the way. The parallels to this movement going against God, rebelling against God, against the establishment, but did it so effectively that he at least won his own kingdom. Lucifer, the dedication to Lucifer. Don, how do we avoid Lucifer controlling the federal government the next 4 years?
The first thing we have to do is try to prevail upon the Republican legislatures in the states where there's been clear election fraud, to either send Republican electors to the Congress, despite the fraudulent vote in clear fraud cases like Michigan and Pennsylvania, which are the worst offenders. So if you have audience members in those states, get on the horn with your Republican legislatures now, or have the House of Representatives decide it. And under the one vote rule per state, as I understand the Constitution, California gets the same number of states as votes as Alaska. So we have to put pressure right now on our state elected representatives to step in and not allow what is clear, both direct and circumstantial evidence of fraud to proceed. We cannot have a hair trigger reaction to certify this election with so much fraud smoking, from last Tuesday.
And explain a little, and Don, explain what you mean by the legislatures. I think there's a lot of audience members who are confused about how the Electoral College works. As far, it's not the people who send it's the legislators. Go ahead.
That's right. The Constitution at Article 1 speaks of the Electoral College, which is determined by the legislatures of the state, which ultimately elect the president. The president is not elected by popular vote. Generally, there has been a correlation between the popular vote and the electors sent by states. But the Electoral College itself is the greatest, in my opinion, of many checks and balances in the Constitution. When I lecture on the Constitution, I show a picture of a drunk driver with handcuffs on and say, what's this? It's a handcuff. Well, that is a picture of the United States Constitution, because the Constitution does two things, and I'll be real quick. One, it guarantees liberty, okay? Life, liberty, and property. Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness is declaration. Life, liberty, property guarantees liberty. But two, it is a great restraining device on unrestrained power, okay? And so we see multiple checks and balances. And the Electoral College is the ultimate check and balance. The founders recognized corruption in urban areas, even in the late 1700s. And so therefore, the legislatures have the ability to combat that fraud in these urban areas by sending electors to vote as the legislatures instruct. So the state of Pennsylvania can send a Republican electoral slate to vote for Donald Trump if those legislatures feel that the presidential election has been compromised through fraud or through too many shenanigans going on, or if there's not enough confidence in the popular vote. They can do that, and they should do that. So if you're living in those states, get on the horn to your members of the House and Senate in those states and put pressure on them now not to let this heist be completed. That's the first thing that I would say.
And like in Pennsylvania, like Don is saying, I just want to reiterate, is it's a Republican-controlled legislature, okay?
Right.
And if they see fraud and abuse, but the legislators are only going to react if they get public pressure.
That is right.
Or they show massive amounts of support outside the state capitol, say, guys, hey, we got to listen to the will of the people. This is what the will of the people is.
Right.
The will of the people is not the fraud of the election. It is to have Donald Trump as our electoral representative.
All right, here we are. Hang on. Here we are, 9:40 in the morning, and we're getting pretty deep into some serious stuff. Tom Trento, your host with Susie Gold. We have Jay Mark in the control room. We got Ken Abramowitz, Save the West. Ken, give us your website. People want to come and take a look. How do they find you?
Yes, my website is dedicated to saving Western civilization. By the way, Western civilization, just for people's intellectual curiosity, is people who believe in the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the secular law, plus the Bible. You put the two together, and that's called Western civilization. It's the combination of secular and religious, and it's also synonymous with democracy. And now, to answer your question, the website is savethewest.com, and people should subscribe to it. It's a public service website, and I write an article every week on what's wrong and how to fix it. And if they subscribe, they get that email every week. And also, I just published a book 2 weeks ago on the multi-front war, which is how to fight roughly 50 different wars, battles, issues, challenges simultaneously. It's like a cookbook for everything that's wrong and how to fix it.
And I have it. I have it downstairs. Otherwise, we'd bring it up here. And it's a great book. But savethewest.com, your website. Well, let's approach this touchy issue right up front, Ken. Anywhere, any place, any location on your website, you have a dedication to Lucifer?
Do you? Do you have a dedication, Lucifer, on your website?
Dedicated. I'm going to dedicate to Trento. That's what I'm going to do.
I thought I covered all the issues, and I forgot that one.
That one.
I'm really sorry.
Dedication to Trento. Or to,
I do not dedicate. Everybody's got to. I do not dedicate anything to Lucifer. So we're talking about explosive. I'm using that word, Don Brown. Explosive recommendations you're making. You're saying.
Right.
If at the end of the day, which is 1 month from today, because on the 14th, everything's supposed to be resolved, the fraud issues that are apparent but not fully resolved, that the electors, because they're free to elect whomever they want, they should, going against what would be the countervailing narrative, going against the obvious vote of the people, the electors should select President Trump. How many riots will erupt that day in how many cities?
It's going to be battle over the country, but you can't give into it. Listen, here's the thing about it. The mainstream media says there is no fraud. There's no evidence for that. That's BS. Look, I've been a trial lawyer for 30 some years. I practiced all over the country. Number one, there are over 1,000 affidavits collected already, largely focusing on Michigan and Pennsylvania, who are the two biggest offenders, where the Democrat machine has violated state election law over and over again by denying not only access of Republican observers to observe, but by illegally extending voting deadlines in Pennsylvania when only the legislature can set that. You just cannot let that stand. You simply can't. And there are affidavits to that effect. We have affidavits, and reports from postal workers where they have been ordered to backstamp, mail-in ballots to get them to count on the 3rd of November. That is evidence. That's direct evidence. There's a ton of direct evidence. Pennsylvania, and you lived through it, Tom, and my congratulations to Florida and to Wendy from taking what was one of the most disastrous voting situations 20 years ago in Palm Beach County, and now Florida is working like a machine with 3 major metro areas, everything in by 10. Congratulations to you all. But what happened in Pennsylvania alone and what happened in Michigan makes what happened in Palm Beach County in 2000 look like a picnic at Disney World. It's not even comparison. There you had a disagreement over continuing to recount overhanging chads, okay? But that really wasn't massive disregard of the law like what we're seeing by the Democrats in Pennsylvania and Michigan, not even by Palm Beach County attempting to recount. The Supreme Court ultimately stepped in and said, hey, you can't do that. That's an equal protection issue because Palm Beach County is setting up a standard different from the other counties of Florida, where there's, Leon County or whatever the other county it might be, Orange County, Palm Beach was setting up a different standard. Well, in Pennsylvania, you've got different standards on steroids. In Philly, in Pittsburgh, and you have election officials even defying court orders. They didn't even let Corey Lewandowski and Pam Bondi get in to see and observe the vote counts. They just turned them away. That cannot stand. It simply can't. And the Pennsylvania legislature cannot allow that to stand. The Democrats didn't have to cheat. They could have let these observers in. They could have obeyed the law. They unilaterally changed the election deadline, the election day deadline by judicial fiat in Pennsylvania. The Constitution says that's up to the legislature to say when your election is over. And Pennsylvania does that at 8 o'clock on election day on the first Monday November, Tuesday of November. It's closed. They extended it because some Democrat judge in Pennsylvania extended. He doesn't have that authority. We've already seen the U.S. Supreme Court express concern over this. Honestly, the Supreme Court should have stepped in before this happened rather than afterwards. But they were at a 4-4 split. So you can't let this stand, not in Pennsylvania, not in Michigan. You simply can't. There's too much there. And for anybody to say, oh, there's no evidence of fraud, that's just a lie. If you're reading that on the mainstream media or hearing it, you're being lied to because there is evidence. Now, you may choose not to believe the evidence, but there is evidence there. And by the way, we have an assistant attorney general, a former assistant attorney general in the state of Michigan, provide an affidavit putting his law license on the line under penalty of perjury that he witnessed constant and massive blocking of Republican poll watchers at the polls in Wayne County. That cannot stand. There are Republican legislatures in both of those states, and they ought to step in and not allow this to go forward and use their constitutional authority in the Electoral College. The Democrats hadn't cheated, it'd be different. If Biden could win this election without cheating and without putting all these questions and these inexplicable actions and cloud over the election, that would be different. But in Pennsylvania, the Democrats controlling the electoral system actually opposed state lawsuits there to allow Republican access to watching the polls. They actually oppose what the law allows. This is the worst thing I've ever seen. And again, it makes Palm Beach in 2020 look like a picnic at Disney World.
All right, here's
I wish Don had a little bit more to say about that.
Hang on. Here's the situation, folks. Don just laid out very clearly, and again, over 30 years, a trial attorney, very passionately, a constitutional argument, a federal argument, a prima facie case for the continuation of the litigation of these principles that are ingrained throughout not only the U.S. Constitution, state constitutions, and furthermore, as Ken referred to, through the history of Western civilization as articulated by the Bible, by the Greeks, by the Romans, to have a fair and just society. So we're here arguing as Republicans for the continuation of law and order and the exposure of unlawful activity. Well, I go back to Saul Alinsky, rule number 8. Everything you just said makes tremendous sense in a constitutional law classroom. In the real world we're in, we have a counter narrative being led by the legacy media, CNN, LOL, MS13, NBC, all these.
Right.
The Joe Biden, President-elect Joe Biden, is walking out of the limousine. Look at the way he walks, the stature, the unification of this man is oozing from his pore. And Vice President-elect Harris, in all her stature and wonder, is coming along. I mean, these are the words of the press. I go to Saul Alinsky, rule number 8. Keep the pressure on. And this is what the counter narrative is doing over against the constitutional argument. Keep the pressure on. Never let up. Keep trying new things to keep the opposition, you, Don Brown, off balance. As the opposition masters one approach, hey, we got this under control. Hit them from the flank with something new.
Constant chaos. But to harken back to what your worthy colleague Mark said a moment ago, I'll take the keep the pressure on rule number 8 and say to our conservative allies listening to this broadcast and in these Republican states to keep the pressure on your legislature. Take the rule and use it against them. Keep the pressure on the legislature. Okay. So yes, this whole thing is not coincidental. It's not coincidental that as soon as Justice Alito sends an order to Pennsylvania on Friday night, ordering them to comply with the law, which is the first legal shot across the bow to the Democrat corrupt machine, that Fox News and the other outlets declare President-elect Biden the next day to distract. And it's a distractive ploy. And even now, as I checked last night, President Trump was within just a little over 11,000 vote difference in Arizona. They may or may not close the gap, but for Fox to have called when they called, that wasn't accidental. I mean, you have more traditionally liberal outlets than Fox that did not call Arizona at the time and waited. So they are trying to keep the pressure on through, as Mr. Bannon calls it, information warfare. This whole pageantry thing with President-elect Biden, the President-elect, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But turn the tables on them, put the pressure back on them. They need to be worried about us, not the other way around. So get on the line with these legislatures in Minnesota, in Pennsylvania, in Michigan, and in Wisconsin, and tell them that this cannot stand. It simply can't.
And they keep pressure on is what, and we have the
right
at the form rallies and
right
like we're doing, and
we got a rally tomorrow. Let's talk about that. We're running out of time, and I got a couple of guests that just walked in. I want to bring them out here for a second, and then I want to address very quickly, Don. I want your input on the state that's very close to you, very close to us, the state of Georgia.
Right.
Going on there. But first of all, let's bring out Michelle Terrace, the founder and director of Jexit. And
Yay, Michelle.
Come here, Michelle. Talk right into the thing.
Here. Good morning.
Closer.
Good morning. I'm peacefully protesting.
Michelle. Hi, Michelle.
There's Don.
Look who else is here.
Look who else we got here.
Hey, Damon.
Oh, wow. Look who came across the big pond there.
I'm not peacefully protesting.
Is that a holograph that Campbell's figured out how to do, or is that the real Damon?
That's the real deal.
Real one.
The real deal. Well, we need him back here for the battle, so I'm glad to have him back.
Rally in Delray Beach tomorrow. So for anyone listening, be at the Delray Beach Pavilion tomorrow. It starts at noon, but get there early.
closer to the mic.
Get there before noon tomorrow. Delray Beach Pavilion. Michelle will tell you more about it.
Go ahead, tell me about it.
Roger Stone will be speaking. Jexit will be there. Women for Trump. Palm Beach Patriots. A bunch of us are forming a community. We're starting a new community.
Michelle is become a community organizer,
Community
in the vein of, not quite in the vein of Saul Alinsky and his acolytes like Hillary and Barry from Hawaii.
No dedication to Lucifer, okay, please.
Bubba will be joining us tomorrow too.
Good, okay.
Bye-bye.
All right, we got a couple of minutes left. Tom Trento, your host.
Can you repeat that where that's at? I didn't quite get it. Where the rally is.
The rally is in the little town of Delray Beach,
in the pavilion,
which is about 15 minutes south of Lake Worthless, and in the pavilion
north of Boca,
Atlantic Avenue, north of and A1A. Starts there, then there's a walk going up the avenue to Old School Square. It's going to be phenomenal. Be there, ladies and gentlemen.
Noon.
Monday, we have some great commercials that Kelly Loeffler, running for re-election, made against the Reverend Raphael Warnock. Don, give us about a minute on your view of the importance of Georgia in the next 2 months.
And also, there's the voting of that the press secretary came out, said that 908 to 94,000 Biden-Trump thing.
I don't want to get into that right now. Just, we got a minute left here, but just the importance of it, because we're going to fire up and focus on Georgia.
Yeah, well, there's a twofold importance to Georgia. One is getting the presidential election right there. Georgia was the only state to go Dominion 100%. It's been a disaster from the June 2000 this year's Senate race to the presidential race. One disaster after another with these voting machines. We don't have enough time to go into a lot of details, but they're suspect. And the Secretary of State should not certify the election in Georgia. Whether he will or won't, I don't know. He probably will because he's got an interest in the voting machine. Then you get to the U.S. Senate situation. And right now, we don't know whether Perdue is going to go over. Perdue gets 50%. We got him in the Senate. But if he's below 50%, we got to elect 2 Republicans in Georgia running against 2 radicals. And theoretically, if the Democrats were to swing that their way, then they theoretically have control of the Senate on a tie. And so now Joe Manchin came out the other day and said, "Don't fear, I'm not going to vote to pack the court. I'm not going to vote in the filibuster if there were a tie." However, Joe Manchin has done a good job of talking a good game over the years and then voting with Schumer. So we don't know. Georgia's crucial on 2 fronts: getting the presidential election right and making sure we keep Republican control of the Senate. It's going to be the epicenter of one of the greatest political battles in American history within the next month for sure.
And we're going to be in the middle of it. All right, we got about a minute left. And what I'd like to do on the Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat
by the
Shalom.
Way,
Shabbat Shalom.
Take 20 seconds, 30 seconds. Your concluding thoughts to this week, and leave us with something encouraging. Then I'll have Ken do it, and then we'll close out the show.
Well, I think, you know what? It's great to end on a positive note. And a lot of great work has been done this week. We've done a lot of great work on this show and educating all of our listeners on what is going on with regard to this election, where we're going forward. And also we have a clear-cut plan, whether we're looking at a Harris administration or continuing with a Trump administration. We have some serious work moving forward to ensure that the Marxists don't take control and don't have a hold on America, that we do not go the route of socialism. So through the UnitedWest.org, that is our mission. That is what we're working on. We do need desperately, we need your funds so that we can continue to do the good work that we're doing. And there's a lot of positive. We have forged great relationships with organizations all throughout Florida, throughout the country. And so together we're stronger. And so we've done a lot of great work moving forward. Please go on the UnitedWest.org and make your
And
donation.
we'll see you on Friday. All right.
Thanks, guys. Great close there, Susie. Great close.
Take it easy, Don. See you,
All right,
Ken.
guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
You
Shabbat
bet.
Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.